One of the biggest questions that I always receive from my Limerent, clients that are Limerent, is they always ask me, what if, my crush or my Limerent object is actually showing interest? And I always found that interesting because when I was Limerent myself, I always, felt like, wow, the guys that I was actually into, the guys that I was obsessed with, seemed to always notice me. And now that I have like a couple of decades of hindsight, I do not know if my perception of those guys at that age were actually correct. Okay. There are a couple of things here, so let me just kind of talk about them a little. So the first thing is sometimes when you are limerent, your perceptions of your limerent object are actually not really correct. Okay, because when you're limerent, you're always anxious and you're always hoping that your limerent object would, acknowledge your existence, would look in your direction, smile at you, talk to you, have a sort of interaction, and ultimately, reciprocate your intense, loving feelings for them. So when you are limerent for someone, you tend to um, think that whenever someone, your limerent object, actually looks at you, or he talks to you, he or she talks to you, or he or she comes to you and smiles at you, there's a tendency to actually interpret very small human interactions which don't mean anything if anyone else is actually doing that to you. We tend to overemphasize what our limerent object is doing, and put too much of meaning on this sort of very neutral human interactions. So that's one. And sometimes, we need to kind of do a check in terms of like, okay, so does this seem, like the person is actually really interacting with me, or are they like that with other people? Most of the time, it's usually very neutral human interactions that we are kind of overemphasizing. Okay, and another thing is that sometimes, okay, that can be a sort of thing that happens when, because you want something to happen so strongly to you, you're kind of really, really hoping that your limerent object would reciprocate your interest. Sometimes there's a lot of wishful thinking involved, which doesn't actually reflect reality at all. I've had people come to me and tell me that a specific person is actually really, really into them because the guy or the girl keeps staring at them in class, and I happen to be in the same set class as their limerent object and them, and I do not see any staring or any interaction whatsoever. Okay, but it's just that sometimes when you are so in that sort of space where you are fantasizing about the person and thinking so much about them, you can actually perceive reality in quite a distorted manner and perceive it in a way that actually those scenes maybe only existed in your mind. Okay, because limerence is a very one-sided mental activity where you're kind of always thinking about a person, thinking, obsessing, but there's nothing much going on in real life. So sometimes when we think our limerent object is kind of interested in us, we have to kind of take a step back and ask ourselves, are we actually being grounded and realistic about what we are actually experiencing? Okay, and if someone else were to do that to us, would we actually be that excited? I mean, if you have like a random person just smile at you, or a random person just look at you, you probably wouldn't think anything about it, right? Another thing to also check is, sometimes are we turning our fantasies into reality? With that said, that's not to say that, your limerent object could not be interested in you. But the thing is that sometimes when you're always constantly staring at someone, you're constantly thinking about them, you're constantly like appearing wherever they are and like, stalking their social media and stuff. The thing is that we may not notice it, and this is something that I also realized on hindsight. You may not actually know it or notice it or realize it, but you're giving off a certain sort of energy or vibe that is so intense and so strong that the person actually kind of feels it, and they are looking at you and kind of, wondering what is going on. Okay, so it's happened to me a couple of times before where I thought that the guy in my class is actually into me, but actually it turns out that, he had a girlfriend, or, he wasn't, he's gay. It's happened to me before, by the way. Um, when, because I kept staring at him and I kept appearing in places where he was, and I kind of like kept chatting to him online and things like that. So I thought that he was interested in me as well, and that kind of made my limerent fantasies even worse. It kind of fueled it even more. But actually, what was going on was that because I was so intense in showing my interest and paying so much of attention to him, that the guy is like probably like, why is this girl staring at me, and why is this girl talking to me out of the blue, and we don't even have any mutual friends, things like that. It is embarrassing. I actually felt very embarrassed for my younger self, but now that I know better, um, you know, it's just just a life lesson, something that I don't do anymore. So if you kind of have a sense that maybe your liminal object is actually interested in you, I don't suggest doing anything because it could be just a vibe that you're giving off. Um, but in any case, when it comes to liminal objects and whether we should pursue a relationship with them, which is a topic of another video, I generally do not recommend it because you're already going into that relationship or interaction, already putting that person on a pedestal and already fantasizing so much about them that, they are no longer this like real person to you anymore. Okay, but as a topic for another video, and I hope that with this I actually answered, some part of, if you had some kind of curiosity about, what to do if your limerent objects actually seems to be interested in you. I hope this helped to some extent. And I will see you again in the next video. So I've also linked two important resources down in the description below. The first is my book on how to break up with limerence and romantic obsession. So I go through various strategies that you can use to end limerence today, and I also go into the whys. So why certain people actually experience limerence, the psychological, environmental, and even neurological reasons for why limerence occurs. And I also talk about the addictive part of limerence that not many people talk about. And I also have another resource, which is a limerence workshop that I recently ran. So if you're on my email list, you get to submit your questions to me, and I address them personally in these workshops, which are around 2 hours long. And I answer all your questions, and you get lifetime access. So these links are down in the description below. Once again, thanks, guys, and I will see you again in the next video. Remember to like and to subscribe and to share this video if it's useful for you and if someone like you can also benefit from it. Thank you.